Well, for more on this, we're now joined by Eleanor Olszewski. She's the Minister of Emergency Management, joining us right now from the foyer of the House of Commons. Minister, good to meet you. Thank you for making the time.
Really appreciate it, Michael. Happy to be here.
So, let's begin with today's briefing, because based on what we heard, 2025 is already shaping up to be the second worst wildfire season on record. We're still officially in spring, not yet summer. Given the high temperatures and drought conditions expected in the months to come, are resources where they need to be to meet the challenge of the summer?
Yeah, and you used the right word, Michael, and it is challenge. It's indeed a challenge, but we have every confidence, and Canadians can have confidence that between the Government Operations Centre, which monitors wildfire conditions across the country, and also the Interagency Fire Center, that we are able to not only monitor wildfires but respond to them in an appropriate fashion. And just generally speaking, Michael, just for the benefit of people listening, that's generally done. The response starts on a local level. And then it's a shared response. That's the principle that emergency management is based on. So we start locally, provincially, and then we move on to when and if assistance is requested, then the federal government steps in.
So you stand at the ready, as you say, once
Yes.
called in by the provinces and local officials. But here we have a situation where we're detecting or following wildfires all the way from Ontario to British Columbia now at this point. What can you tell us about how well prepared the federal government is and the resources are to meet any call from the provinces or local official?
I would say that the federal government is well prepared to meet any requests for assistance, and where we've seen those requests in the last few weeks have been with respect to air evacuations. And so you'll know that Matthias Colum First Nation, as well as Cross Lake, and then more recently Sandy Lake in Ontario, the two provinces, Manitoba and Ontario, did make requests for Canadian Air Force assistance, and those requests were approved immediately. And then the process of evacuating people from those communities began in earnest right after the requests were approved. And I'm just really, first of all, Michael, grateful to the members of the Canadian Air Force and the Canadian Coast Guard and all of the other first responders that were involved in basically moving people from these remote communities to places of safety without life of loss or limb. And kudos to those individuals, because they put their own individual safety at risk in order to help and save others. And it's so very much appreciated by our department, and I know by all Canadians as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important reminder that these are women and men who run into danger where others would run away from. But as you say that though, Minister, and I hope I can ask this sensitively. We did hear, for example, last week, Leah Gazan, the Winnipeg MP, criticized the federal government's response, saying that it failed to uphold, and this is a quote here, failed to uphold the dignity and well-being of First Nations when it comes to evacuation efforts. So that said, I'm wondering two things: whether or not you have spoken to Ms. Gazan about her concerns, and secondly, what you might be doing to address those concerns.
So I can advise that I did indeed talk to Ms. Gazan about her concerns, and I've also been throughout the last few weeks in close communication with Minister Galmasti, and you may know that she's in charge of Indigenous Services Canada, and they are the government entity that are basically that entity's there to assist First Nations when they're involved in a wildfire situation, and particularly in terms of evacuation, and then providing supports for First Nations peoples when they're moved to an actual evacuation site. So First Nations would have had an opportunity to deal directly with Indigenous Services Canada. I can also say, Michael, I know that that some of the Grand Chiefs did raise concerns, and we don't take that lightly at all. So in the weeks to come, I will be meeting with my federal and, with my provincial and territorial counterparts, and also with Minister Galmasi to make sure that we understand where there might have been gaps in communication and that we address those appropriately.
I know we're quickly running out of time, but before we're done, I do want to ask one more question of you, Minister, because it has been raised, given the number of natural disasters Canada now deals with, it seems on an annual basis, that it might be worthwhile to create some type of national agency to coordinate response and resources. And I know there are several different agencies, but there has been the suggestion perhaps they should be grouped together, much as the United States has done with FEMA. Is that something that your government is considering right now?
It is absolutely, and certainly, I've only been the minister for a few short weeks, but I have heard a number of different people speak about such a national strategy or a national agency, and I can assure Canadians that the safety of Canadians is paramount, and we'll be looking at each and every way, various options, and a national strategy or national agency is one of them, to make sure that we're responding to wildfire and other emergencies in the absolute best possible way. So I am committed to looking at the various options, absolutely.
Is there a timeline in your mind when you say that?
I would say that my priority at this point in time is really making sure that we deal with moving people to safe places in terms of evacuations. And then once that's accomplished, and that may be that we can't turn to that till closer to the end of the summer and the end of the wildfire season, then I'll be looking at that in earnest. But throughout this process, really taking lessons learned from what's happened to date and what will happen over the weeks to come, because we do expect it, as you say, Michael, for it to be a very challenging summer months across Canada, unfortunately.
Yeah, as you say, unfortunately, but very thankful for the time this evening, Minister Olszewski. Thank you for this.
Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate it, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you so much.